Hey guys, Kate here of Burn One. Like I said, I'm back with the Love Life Superstar Encore Loop Combo Deck Profile here. This is the current list I am running. I feel it's super consistent and always doing what it wants to do. This list does include the PR cards, but I will include some extra information on how to get around not having to use the PR cards if you don't want to spend the money to play this deck. Otherwise, it still functions. It just becomes a little bit more awkward and a little less consistent, but you can still have fun comboing off against your friends. So right off the bat, here's the deck profile itself. If you guys are here only for the deck ratios and everything like that, go ahead. Here it is. Take it. Get the hell out of here. But if you can, before you leave a like, comment, anything like that, or subscribe to us. It does help us grow and makes us more motivated to keep doing content like this as we start getting back into the swings of doing actual recorded videos. We hope to continue this moving forward. So, any engagement is good engagement for us. All right, I'll start going through the deck profile itself, starting off with the level zeros. So first off is the 4 of this brainstorm. This brainstorm is super pivotal to make the deck keep functioning the way we want it to. We have it as 4 of because we want to see it as soon as possible because it does enable us to let us be really aggressive if we start drawing too many stock souls right off the bat. Every time we draw a stock soul, starting from level 0, we could Trifield slam the stock soul, get a card back, and basically we gain a stock without losing a card as long as we have this card on the board. Super powerful combo consistency tool as well to set up your hand going into level 3. Next, we have a 1 of the spammable brainstorm. This is for 2 things. For controlling deck manipulation to get through your deck fast enough and putting it into a state where you're always going to have like decent cancels. Next thing is it's a top check 3, add 1, discard 1. So this does let you get either climaxes if you need it or events. Events are very powerful in this deck. Anytime you draw an event, it's just really, really good for you, especially at level 3. And then the last effect is it goes to stock if your opponent plays a climax, which is good. So you can play it, send it to stock, brainstorm it out, and loop it kind of like that. Getting free stock every time your opponent plays a climax is pretty decent. We only play it as a 1-of because it's not super important. But one thing to note about this card is that if you are planning to play this deck without the PR cards, it's probably in your best interest to play this as a 2 to 3 of because the extra stock makes a huge difference. In this version of the deck, as long as you have the PR cards, it's not as important. It is helpful to have this, but in here it's more of like a consistency tool as far as getting events or climaxes to hand when needed, or for deck manipulation. That's why we only need it as a 1-of, since it's very easy to get any card we want in this list outside of events. But having that extra stock whenever your opponent plays a climax is super important for any lists that do not play the PR card. Next, this is our plussing level 0 that also filters our hand to be able to get our level 1 combo or 2 combos or whatever we need. So 1500, it always gets 1500. So basically this card's 3k power all the time, but it has the ability to run to center to avoid combat if need be. And if it doesn't run to center and gets into waiting room during your opponent's turn, you can pay 1, discard a card, and search your deck for a music character. This is probably one of the most premier center runners there is right now. It's just really good at making things very consistent. So obviously we run this as a 4 of. Next, we play 4 of the clean cut. We want kind of a more aggressive way to build stock early on, as well as, this clean cut is just very powerful. It's a 3k clean cut, which means it can reverse most things in the front row as well. And then whenever this card does get reversed, you can send a copy of this to memory, as long as you don't have a blue card in memory. Slightly 1 card compression, that's kind of cool and all that. But this is basically in there to enable like turn 2 tri-fields with something like the clean cut, brainstormer plus center runner. Makes it obnoxious way to build 3 stock early, push your opponent, and then still retain the brainstorm, which is really powerful. Next, we run a 2 of this mill 4. When it goes to waiting room, top you can discard a card. Top check 4, add any level 1 or higher card. It lets you get your events. It lets you get your level 1 combos, level 3 combos, level 2 events. All good. Super powerful card. Free deck manipulation, essentially. There are some funny loops you can do with this, which is pretty interesting. One play I've done before where I played this card over the clock encored the 1/0 back to cause it overplay this card, which lets me discard a card from my hand, top check 4. I found a 2/0 event. 2/0 event lets me salvage this card again, overplay to get on the clock encore, clock encore the card back and discard a card just to mill through my deck or find events that way. It does get kind of hand intensive when you do some cool strategies like that, but it's something to keep in mind. It's just this card is such a very powerful deck manipulation and hand fix tool for the deck, especially during combo turns. And then on top of that, it has an on attack. You can give one of your music characters, including itself, if you need to choose 1,000 power for the turn. Can make your clean cut a little bit bigger and things like that. The extra 1,000 power isn't the most important thing. The most important thing here is the secondary effect. Next, we play two of this pay one ditch one salvage music character for two reasons. One, it gives us some easy access to waiting room when need be. If we have extra stock, we can spin that stock and hand to be able to salvage a key piece to our combo, a level 3 or anything like that. But one of the big reasons we do run this card is the first effect. When it does come into play, you get free mill off of it, and sometimes you get free access to your waiting room. So after playing this deck a while, when you start hitting your second refresh and stuff like that, or even third refresh, this card's first effect goes off like almost every single turn. On top of having that extra mill 2 for free is really powerful in situations where you're on the end game. You need to figure out a way to manipulate the number of cards in your deck to enable you to not kill yourself going to 3-6 by using clock on cores and then running out of cards and then dying. This is one of the few tools you can use to manipulate those numbers, which is pretty cool, at the same time as well as it being a consistency tool, which is really, really powerful. The extra 1,000 power doesn't come up that often from the drop salvage effect, but this card is really powerful utility overall. Next, we're going to level 1s here. The level 1 combo of choice is this 1-0 blue combo. What makes this combo so good is, one, it's always 7k, even if you don't have the climax during your attack phase. So it can actually fight things generally, and it gets kind of big for your opponent to actually counter over. The next thing is that with the climax combo, it becomes AK, so you can contest those 7-5s and force your opponent to use a counter or something to save their 7-5s. But what's so good about this is that we get to decide where we want to put the climax combo when we reverse our battle opponent to search our deck for a music character. So we could stack it all into the last character, swing in there, then pull 3 cards out of our deck. And because our deck is really important on resolving these climax combos, resolving effects, and to have this consistent game plan, we need the selectivity of this card, which is really good. On top of it being on a pants trigger, so it lets us salvage stock souls back to our hand. And like I said earlier, already with the brainstorm, if you have it on the field, you get incentivized more to slam stock souls because you get a stock back and a card back to your hand. All right. Our next level 1 combo here, or not combo, but level 1 here is obviously the 1-0 Shioko PR. This is the combo enabler. If you don't know why this is in the deck already, you need to go check out our other video that explains the combo and the consistency of it. We played as a 2 of because one, my third one is unfortunately not with me right now. So I only play this as a 2 of because I only own 2 more here in person. Otherwise, ideally, you probably want this as a 3 of instead of doing the 2-1 split I'm doing here. But the 2-1 split is fine. As long as you at least have 1 copy of this card, you can still make decent plays and not have to worry that much about stock. But obviously, anytime you can not spend stock to get yourself to 3-6 is really, really important for the deck, because every 2 stock is essentially another effect that we can be abusing with the combo. Like I said here, we had a 1 of the 1-1-7-5. You're basically playing the game. A clock encore to enable the combo. 1-1-7-5 is still pretty big, and in those dire situations, same thing with the Shioko PR card. If your hand is really trash, you can still clock encore to keep hand size up if need be, or push yourself to level 2 to do the climax combo. Moving on to level 2, this is part of the reason why the deck is super consistent on top of having the Stock Soul Brainstorm Climax combo. So this 2-1 gains 1k for every other music character, which is cool and all. 2-1 10k is pretty good. But what makes it so good is the Climax combo is when this card finishes attacking and you have 4 more other characters, you get a salvage 1 and then stock charge 1 from the waiting room, which means you get to basically play this card for free as long as you do the climax combo, and you get to add important cards to your hand, on top of it being a double climax combo with the brainstorm. So say you triple filled this and you have a brainstorm out back on the field, that means when this card during that turn, you're going to gain 7 stock after playing all this and 4 cards to hand. And a lot of times at level 2, there are situations where it lives and you draw into another stock soul, you get even more cards to your hand as well as more stock, which is obnoxious at times. And this enables you that, like, if you're going into level 3 with like 2 or 3 of these in hand, you don't really, or level 2 or 3 or whatever, You don't need to clock to draw cards if need be. The only time you really need to clock is if you're trying to dig for the stock soul, which isn't always the most important thing, depending on what your hand state is like. Really strong card, really powerful climax combo. I'm surprised, like not like I haven't seen this more often or talked about more often outside of this. Next, we have another combo consistency tool here. We play it as a 4 of, obviously. It's 2-0. We mostly use it for the second effect if we get to salvage music characters from our waiting room. So it lets us recycle combos, get pieces back to our hand. You can even use it during the counter phase to salvage a card before your opponent forces you to refresh and things like that. Really powerful card, really good tool. It combos, like I said, with the Mill 4 character earlier, so you can get it back to your hand and things like that. But generally, this is in here for more consistency. This essentially at level 2 creates 4 extra copies of every card in your every character in your deck that's in waiting room at any time. Really strong card. Here we go. This is the great finisher of the deck. It's the Galaxy Sumire. So what makes it so good is obviously we get ourselves to the 3-6 state, and then our opponent mills out a bunch of cards. We ping them for a lot of damage, and then we go in for like really big damage afterwards by shuffling cards back into the deck or shuffling in climaxes to force guaranteed damage. So essentially, the way this combo works out is if the game is fairly even all the way up to that point, you're probably going to kill your opponent during main phase, and if it's not that even, you still have a chance during attack phase to close out the game because of all the damage and refresh and stuff like that you push through to your opponent. If this card didn't exist, this deck would not work at all, honestly. So this is kind of like the main staple of the deck. We run it as a 4 of because it's how we kill our opponent, and being able to loop 3 to 4 of these during a turn or so is just obnoxious at times. Here's a secondary combo piece we use. It's not always used in every way to kill your opponent, but it's very powerful in that because of the initial Sumire, when it mills all the cards and you get your opponent down to a very tiny deck of like 3 cards or something ridiculously small like that, you can, if you know they're all their climaxes, you can shuffle that back in pure damage into their deck. So you can guarantee your swings for 2-2-2 or 3-3-3 will all just be 100% sticking, which is obnoxious. It's another reason why we run so many of the 2-0 events as well. It lets us loop this because this level 3 by itself is kind of crappy to draw into usually. That's why we only run it as a 2 of. We don't normally want to play more than 1 during our finishing phase. But there's cases where you'll play this shuffling cards, then overplay it and use a 2-0 event to get it back, and then play it again to shuffle in another 3 cards. Just to guarantee like they have like 9 damage in their deck, 9 straight damage. Very powerful to close out games in those sense, but it's also not like the most key piece to the combo itself. It just makes it pretty cool. It works well with the 3-0 event, which we'll be looking at next. It can shuffle black and climaxes to enable your 3-0 event to do guaranteed damage or put climaxes into your opponent's clock. Here we go on with the 3-0 event, Song for All. We obviously run as a 4 of because it's one of the strongest finishing tools we have when we mill our opponent out. What makes it so good is that it works in any state your opponent's deck state is in. Once you do all the mills, this card is still very powerful. So if we mill your opponent deck down and there's like 5 cards left and you can't play another mill thing, but you look at your opponent's waiting room and they're like, oh shit, there's still 3 climaxes in my opponent's deck potentially. This card essentially lets you do free damage. And then in some cases, when you do the blue level 3, you can shuffle in more climaxes and play multiple copies of this level 3 event to just like put 5 damage in your opponent's clock or something ridiculous. There have been games where I've shuffled in back 6 climaxes into my opponent's deck and played 2 of these to hand, guaranteeing them death no matter what, because they're like at 3-1, they reveal like 2 climaxes, they take damage, and they don't even pull out climaxes when using this effect after they start sending things to clock, which is the scary part, because if you have another 3-0 event afterwards, you can do it again, and because they've removed more non-climaxes out of their deck, it makes this hit up to 3 more likely every time you do it. One thing to note too, which is really cool, is that after you do this effect, if they still have climaxes in their deck and you have 2 stock left over, you can slam down another level 3 red card and then mill their deck, get out the guaranteed damage, get a guaranteed refresh burn, and then they're stuck with a new deck with like anywhere from like 2 to 3 climaxes or so, or even more of climaxes stuck in their clock, which means their refresh was really poor, which means you can push damage in with like the 2-2-2 swings. And that basically wraps up the deck profile here. Once again, here's the deck list. This combo deck is actually absurd, in my opinion. If you have access to the PR cards, this deck is basically almost like tier 0 in my opinion. It does have some weaknesses though. Some of the minor weaknesses obviously are if you have anti-encore, then this deck can't get to 3/6. The deck can still play for compression and by stock charging everything away and hoping your opponent doesn't stock swap. If your opponent has stock swap and they stock swap you at level 2 and your hand isn't ready for the following turn of being level 3, this can cause problems by stocking away some of your events that you might need, stocking away characters you might need. But usually it's not that bad if you hit 2 first, which you can force yourself to hit 2 first because of Clock Encore, and you get to resolve your combo and get most of your hand ready for level 3. It's not the worst. It's not the worst thing to happen to you, but it is really annoying if your hand isn't ready for a stock swap and you have cards still in your deck that you were hoping to get access to the following turn. And then finally, other decks that have really crazy potent finishers like Day I Became a God and things like that. If the game stays even, but they're able to get to level 3 before you get to level 3, and you haven't created a wide enough gap in damage for them to not kill you one turn. There are scenarios where even though you're like 2/6 and you just decide to wait a turn to go off instead of going off that turn by clocking yourself to 3/6. You can be put into a scenario where you just die immediately and you don't get to go off with your combo. Those are the situations that are worst for the deck overall. So some decks that have super potent finishers, we don't have any protection against it essentially. So you have to know when is the right time to force yourself to 3/6 to go off before your opponent can kill you in some cases. In other cases, if the damage gap is wide enough, you don't really care. If you're like 2/3, your opponent's not going to kill you from 2/3. Playing like a really crazy finisher, unless you're like really, really, really screwed over by like having no climaxes in deck and refreshing and killing yourself that way. But overall, this is the complete deck, very powerful deck. I implore you guys to try this deck list out if you have access to the PR card. The PR card is literally what makes this deck function in any matchup that is really bad for you. When they push a lot of damage, they get really lucky and push you really far really fast, because we don't have any way to really heal ourselves, because we're not looking to heal ourselves in this list, because we're looking to get to 3/6 and then immediately kill our opponent without them being able to respond. So like I said, the PR card makes it so that your threshold on stock isn't as heavy, and because of that, you're able to commit sooner, like one turn sooner normally than later, instead of having to wait another turn so you can have the stock to double play 1/1 Clock Encore. Like I said in the beginning though, you can play 3 of the 1/1s if you don't have access to the PR card, but in that case, you'll probably need to make some cuts somewhere or move some cards around and play multiple, anywhere of 1 to 2 extra spammable brainstorms, because that card does save your butt whenever you need stock and your opponent's going to go off with a climax combo next turn. You can slam this in the back row whenever you want, send it to stock and use that stock in the next turn to be able to facilitate your combo and be able to play your 1/1s to do the Clock Encore loop, to be able to set yourself up for it. All right, that's the deck and everything, guys. Thanks for watching. Here's some social media links here. We have the Burn 1 Discord. Come by, join it. We are still doing King of the Hill. I believe it's still on Fridays. We've been, due to the holidays, we've kind of been delaying it, but we should be starting it again this week and continue it onward. I think we're on like week 19 or something ridiculous now. So come on by, see if you can beat our current champion. And if you can stick around and see how many weeks in a row you can win. Next, we have the Weiss Schwarz Discord itself. This is a Weiss Schwarz TCG Discord. It used to be named the competitive Weiss Discord, but we've gone and rebranded it because we want it to be more open to everyone in the player base, not just people who like to play the game competitively, but also to the more casual audience who just play on the kitchen table. Next, we have a couple Twitter ats here. I have myself and Carmen on here, still waiting on the rest of the team confirming if they want to be on this list or not. Otherwise, give us a follow on there. We have more social media links below in the more info section on YouTube. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching. I hope to see you guys in the next video. Later.